living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Hey guys, Keith Engle for Let's Talk Sports. Let's Talk New York Sports. Dan Harrison, Keith Engle are your co-host. I am also doing a show solo again today as our good friend Dan Harris continues to valiantly fight some health issues, and we wish him well. And again, I will ask you again to hopefully reach out to Dan. He's one of my best buddies over there in the UK, and I'm so happy that he and I have hooked up. Been doing the show now for 2 years, and it's been a lot of fun each and every Friday, and I miss Dan. I certainly enjoy getting here with you guys and talking each Friday about New York sports. We're a little early today. I apologize for that, but I've got some commitments later, so I thought we'd go on live early. Hopefully there'll be a few of you with us, and we can talk about your comments on the New York sports stories we'll talk about today. And you guys can feel free to bring up anything you want. But please, back to my original thought, reach out to Dan as we run into this new year, and I really hope the best for Dan as we hit the new year. I know that he's run into a few snags with his treatments and whatnot, but Dan is a great guy, would give you the shirt off his back, and he really sent me a really cool Mac Jones T-shirt, which we'll roll out for you guys one Friday, maybe when Dan's back. But we do miss him, and please send him a nice word of encouragement because I'm sure he'll like it. But we'll talk about all of New York sports today. We'll get into football, basketball, baseball, a little bit of college football and college basketball as well. But lots to talk about in the world of sports, New York sports here today. And we'll do that, and we'll take your comments and talk about the topics you want to talk about as well for the next hour or so. What's going on in the world of sports? Anything in New York? I don't know. I guess we got 4 teams involved in a playoff race. Well, I count New England as a New York team on this show because it's my team. And it's one of the agreements Dan and I came to when we started doing this show. But we'll get all the 3. We'll get the 1 New York team and the 2 New Jersey teams in today, I promise you. We'll talk about Knicks. They're colder than molasses. Nets staying red hot. Yankees with a couple of small moves. Mets, we'll just see what's going on there. I don't know if there's much to talk about, but we'll get into it. And Syracuse loses their bowl game. Things have not been going well there. All right, so let's start with the Jets. The Jets started, they had Mike White. They brought Mike White in to replace Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was inactive for a couple of weeks, and then Mike White got hurt, and they tried. And I said then they could not bring Zach Wilson back. That it would not work. You could not bring him back. Well, they did it. And it kind of showed. He didn't play well. Was horrible last week against Jacksonville. Threw for about 90 yards. Jets lose 19-3. They've lost 4 in a row. And again, we've talked about a lot that perspective is really everything. I don't know why I'm getting that distortion in the back of me here. I'll try to fix that. Perspective is everything. If I said to you the Jets had a chance to go 8-9, 9-8, be fighting for a playoff spot the last 2 weeks, you'd be very happy before the season, Jet fans. But given the way they started the season, I think 6-2, solidly in contention for a playoff spot. Now that's gone away. They're 7-8. They've lost 4 in a row. Their quarterback's taking steps backwards. Now this season feels like a disaster, right? Here's our problem right there. See how that is. Is that any better? So again, Zach Wilson is done in New York. I've been a big fan of his. I've been telling Jet fans to relax. This season was about getting better and get Zach Wilson's maturity and get him up to speed to be an NFL quarterback. That part has not happened at all. The team's gotten better. The players around Zach Wilson have gotten better. They found probably the running back of the future in Hall, who got hurt, unfortunately. And again, it was no small piece of no small happening in what's happened to the Jets here recently. But Garrett Wilson's shown he's going to be a solid, if not better, NFL wide receiver, maybe a potential superstar. Some of the other wide receivers have stepped up. The tight ends have played well. The defense has been much, much better. Robert Saleh has gotten better in his second year, although stop talking about collecting receipts and stuff like that, which he's done. But Zach Wilson now is in limbo. Mike White going to return, and I don't think you'll see Zach Wilson even suit up. I think his career in New York is probably over. I still think Zach Wilson could be an NFL quarterback, but it's going to be very hard for him to do it here. And I think the Jets will probably cut him loose, try get the best deal they can get from an Atlanta, from a Las Vegas. Be interesting to see him go to Vegas and play under Josh McDaniel. Might be interesting to see what happens there. And interesting enough, Derek Carr is probably done in Vegas, as they've benched him for God, I can't remember the guy's name, my expatriate. Oh, Jarrett Stidham. Derek Carr appears to be finished in Vegas. We're looking for a new place. I'm not a big Derek Carr fan, but if I'm the Jets, I might consider finding a way to get Derek Carr in town here. Maybe there'll be some kind of deal that can be made out for if the Raiders are interested in Wilson. Derek Carr could have a few good years left, and maybe a team that's built a little differently than the Raiders can be successful with a David Carr. Derek Carr has won some games in the NFL. He's one of those guys whose numbers always look good. This year, not so much. But then he loses big games in the playoffs or regular season trying to get into the playoffs. But he might be a guy the Jets are interested in. They'll be interested in all the guys that are going to be looking for new teams. The Jimmy Garoppolos. Just kind of looking here. Maybe even the Jacoby Brissett. That's a lesser, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, are these the guys you want to bring in here? I don't know. Trying to see some other guys that might be there. Russell Wilson, no, you're not going to pay that contract, but Denver's going to have to do something with him. I don't know. I really don't know what they do, but I think Derek Carr might be a name to keep an eye on. As far as this year goes, the Jets' playoff hopes are hinging on other people now. They've got to win both their games, and they've got to hope that other teams ahead of them lose because they do not control their own destiny. Patriots and Titans are the only teams outside of the playoffs right now that do control their own destiny. In the AFC, I think Carolina also controls their own destiny in the NFC. Teams that are out of the playoffs, okay? So Jet fans, has it been a good year? Has it been a bad year? That's up for you to decide, but I don't think it's a bad year. I think you've gotten better every place except, of course, the most important position on the field. You made a mistake, maybe bringing Zach Wilson. His lack of maturity and New York is not a good combination. We'll see what happens in the offseason. The Giants, on the other hand, right now they're in the playoffs. The entire NFC East is in the playoffs. Giants stumbling a little bit down the to the finish line here, but I think things. If you take everything into again before the season, if I told you this is where you'd be 8-6-1, need a win to get in the playoffs, you would be very happy. If I told you Daniel Jones would only turn the ball over, 5 times on interceptions. How many times has he fumbled? Come, I don't have fumbles in here. Not sure. Let's see. He's probably in here. Only 2 fumbles. 1 fumble he's lost. He's turned the ball over 6 times. This was the big problem with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, listen, guys, has shown that he is a quarterback that the Giants can trust and invest in going forward. And then they've got to improve the cast around him at the skill positions. They play better on the offensive line. Daniel Jones has been smarter, taken better care of the football, made better decisions. But you consider the wide receivers he's got to throw the ball to, they've got to make some changes there. Draft, free agency, whatever it is. Now, the kid from Kentucky getting hurt didn't help them, obviously. I think he was turning the corner a little bit. Shepard getting hurt. A lot of guys. Slayton getting hurt. I mean, they've got some veterans they could bring back in here. But Daniel Jones is the future of this quarterback. His quarterback rating's 90. Now, he's only thrown for 13 touchdowns. But he's managed games very well. As long as Saquon Barkley, and that's why they need to get some weapons around Jones, because they need to take some pressure off Saquon Barkley. Again, I'll say this for the 100th time, you guys, as Giant fans, if he'd been drafted in the middle, late second round, you would think, oh my God, what a great job they've done developing Daniel Jones. Plus, he's had a gazillion offensive coordinators and 3 head coaches. And he's finally got a head coach that believes in him and a guy who can work with quarterbacks and make them better. If you don't see the improvement in Daniel Jones, you're not paying attention. Team's going to make the playoffs with a quarterback who has no weapons to throw the ball to consistently. Great job out of Daniel Jones. You should be proud of the development you've had. And Giant fans, you'd be happy to have Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones was working with the cast the Jets had, but Giant fans continue to run Daniel Jones down. A lot of them. You know who you are. You're not paying attention if you don't think Daniel Jones has made leaps and tremendous leaps and bounds over the last 4 years. 6 turnovers, guys. That's it. He did that in a half last year, 2 years ago. He's gotten better every year of his career. Stop blaming him for being picked 6 in the draft. He didn't decide to be picked 6 in the draft. God, I hate having to stick up for New York teams. I really do. Giants. Oh, where are they? 8-6-1. As I said, the entire East in the playoffs right now. The Giants finish up with the Colts this weekend, the Eagles next week. They got to win this game against the Colts. Eagles at the Eagles will be very tough unless the Eagles have nothing to play for, which is possible. So the Giants will finish with 9 or 10 wins, most likely. They'll be in the playoffs, maybe one and done. But is that the worst thing that's ever happened? Again, before this season, if I told you you'd make the playoffs and go out in the first round, you'd have been so excited. Right? Ugh. You New Jersey fans are tough. Buffalo. A lot of guys down on the Bills. Not Bills fans, but other teams. How are you down on the Bills? The Bills have won 5 in a row. They scored 157 more points than they've given up, which is by far the best in football. 20 better than the Eagles. They're 12-3. Right now, they hold the home field advantage, which is very important to them through the playoffs. Josh Allen's played well, turned the ball over a little too much. They haven't run the ball well. Their defense is still pretty good, but they keep getting run into the ground. 6 consecutive wins. They struggled a bit there in midseason, but every team's going to have their little valleys. This team gets a home field advantage. They're going to go to the Super Bowl, guys, most likely. Cincinnati's gotten pretty hot. They got Cincinnati this week. Again, I really believe I've got to root for Buffalo this week in Denver. As a Patriot fan, I need Buffalo to wrap things up this week. So I need Denver to beat Kansas City. Philly sports guy gave me a scenario where maybe I want the Bills to lose this week and Chiefs to win. But to me, that still leaves next week in doubt, and the Bills will play all out against my team. I need a team that's not going to play their starters. That's what I need. But this team is still on the rise. Josh Allen's still getting better. Just got a ton of wide receivers. The defense is missing Von Miller, who's done for the year. Sadly, would love to have seen him get to a Super Bowl with the Bills. It would have been his third team that he went to the Super Bowl with. Could have won with a third team, and that would have been a record, I believe. But the Bills, for some reason, just keep getting run down a little bit. I mean, the Mad New Yorker, who, again, I don't think he knows the Jets and Giants don't play in New Jersey, that Buffalo really is the only team that plays in New York. Dave Guyette, if you're listening, you know that. Big Buffalo fan. Mike Kassler, big Buffalo fan. Tom and Linda Day, big Buffalo fans. I'll give them some shout outs. They know there's only one team in New York. No reason to think this Bills team is not playing on all cylinders, man. 5-6 wins in a row. Now, again, running into a hot Bengal team this week. They almost blew a game. We'll kind of do a little segue here. They played my team last week, got up 22-0. And then the Patriots woke up, which we've seen before. Closed the gap to 22-18, driving for the game-winning touchdown, fumble by Ramondre Stevenson. Cincinnati wins their 7th in a row. Not a great performance in the second half, but enough to give the Bills a scare this week. Cincinnati still with a chance for that home field advantage as well. Patriots, they do control their own destiny. They've fallen to 7-8. Listen, some of these losses that they've had are going to hurt this team for the longest time. They lost to a Packer team that it turns out isn't very good, although they've got themselves back in the NFC wildcard race. They lost to a Ravens team that wasn't very good, but they did have Lamar Jackson at the time. They lost to a horrible Bears team at home. They lost a game at the Vikings on Thanksgiving night that they easily could have won. Probably their best offensive performance of the year. They lost to the Raiders on a stupidest play in the history of football. Or at least tied. And they lose on a fumble inside the 10-yard line last Sunday. They fall to 7-8. They still control their own destiny. They got the Dolphins this weekend. They got the Bills on the road in the last week of the season. So New Year's Day, the Dolphins at 1:00. I think they will beat the Dolphins. And I really think they might be better off if Tua was playing. Tua's not playing. Teddy Bridgewater's quarterback. The way Tua's been playing, they're probably better off if Tua had been in there. The Dolphins are in free fall, having lost 4 in a row. They were in contention for the East title for the longest time. But the Patriots can't get in without the Dolphins losing to them this week. And I suppose, to be quite frank, they could get in even by losing the last week. Am I right or wrong? Who did the Dolphins finish up with the Jets? If the Jets should pull off a miracle there, it's conceivable the Patriots could get in with 8 wins. Now, is that great? No, but I want my team in the playoffs no matter what. Some good news for the Patriots. You know, Mac Jones has played better the second half of the season here. The offense still struggling. The news around New England is that Bill O'Brien is already in conversations with the team about returning to be the offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator in name when Josh McDaniel took the job the first time to go to Denver, a head coaching job for the first time to go to Denver. He never had the title, but he was the de facto offensive coordinator, similar to the way they're operating with Patricia now. But Bill O'Brien's an offensive mind. Matt Patricia belongs on the offensive side of the defensive side of the football. If Bill O'Brien were to come back, that would be a good thing for Mac Jones. Mac Jones doesn't have that offensive, quarterback-minded guy to kind of guide him. You've seen the frustration that he's had with this offense. And again, lack of weapons around him. They're finally getting Michael Bourne. Why do I do Michael Bourne all the time? The former Astro. Kendrick Bourne, who I've been begging them for weeks, months now, to get involved in the offense. Last week, he finally got involved in the offense. Great game last week. What were his numbers last week? Hold on a second. By far his best game. I mean, he wasn't even getting any targets before last week. He ran once for 29 yards. He caught 6 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown, had 9 targets. Michael Bourne is their best offensive weapon outside of Ramondre Stevenson, who was hampered by an ankle injury last week, only had 13 carries for 30 yards, only 2 catches, and nobody else really picked him up rushing the football. Very bad performance for the Patriots running the football. But Mac Jones played really well, especially in the second half. Threw a couple touchdowns, couple 100 yards passing, almost 240, almost all of it in the second half. Great job by the Patriots. So we'll get off the Patriots now. Let's segue over to basketball. And a tale of two cities. Last week, this time, I was sitting here all excited, about the Knicks having they had just had an 8-game winning streak snapped. They were, what was their record at the time? I think they were 18-13. They were tied for 4th in the East. Now, they've lost 5 in a row, played horrible defense doing it. They're 18-18, back down to 8th, only 3 games from falling out of the playoffs. This is the way the season's going to go with this team, apparently. And some of these losses have been just painful. Against the Mavs, they blew a 9. Let me just make sure I get this right. 115, 115. Where the hell are they? Crap, I can't find it. I want to say they were up 9 points with 26 seconds left. Lost this game in overtime to the Mavericks, 126, 121. It doesn't get worse than that. Then they played kind of a tough game against the that was coming off a tough game with the Sixers. They lose to the Spurs on the road. They lose to the Rockets on the road. Or they got the Rockets tonight, sorry. Maybe I predicted something there. But the Raptors last week sent them into a tailspin. 5 in a row now. And again, the defense, which was playing really well, has gone back in the tank as they've given up more than 115 points in all of these games. 122, 126, 119, 118. Knicks can't win like this. Playing with Jalen Brunson banged up a little bit. RJ Barrett's out tonight. Toppin's still out with a leg injury. Randall playing well, scored 41 against the Spurs the other night. Not enough. It's a big win against his Rocket team in my mind. This isn't this isn't the old Rockets. This team's the worst team in basketball, 10-25. They got to win this game on the road, get things going back in the right direction. I know Tom Thibodeau wants to straighten things out here, but they've got to start getting this done. Can't do it without a healthy RJ Barrett and Brunson. But those are not excuses, guys. You've got to play better, more consistent basketball. You can't do that. You're not going to win in this league. Now, surprisingly, the Nets, who I had left for dead when they were 1-5, now have won 10 straight. Jack Vaughn, who I was sympathizing with after he got stuck with this job, has done a tremendous job. What's their record now? 23-12. So since he took the job, they're 22-5. Probably the best record in basketball at that point. Since that point, I would have to hazard a guess. They've moved in second behind the Celtics in the East and ahead of the Bucks, who started off really strong and now have lost 4 straight. But the Nets, of course, being led by all-star point forward, whatever you want to call him, Kevin Durant, who I keep saying, when he's healthy, is one of the best players in basketball. But he's not a leader. That's the problem with his team. Still not a leader. Durant averaging 29, almost 30 points a game. You might as well call it 30 points a game. Kyrie, 26. And by the way, 7 rebounds and 5 assists for Durant as well. When he's healthy, he's still one of the top 3 players in the game, in my mind. But they need a leader. It's not him. It's not Kyrie Irving. It's certainly not Ben Simmons, who leads this team in assists but won't shoot the basketball. Where's Simmons? He's up to 8 points a game. Rebounds well. Does everything else well. This guy's an all-round player. He just needs to shoot the basketball a little bit. They need to get this guy with a sports psychologist because he's got this phobia about shooting the basketball. And some other guys, again, Nick Clayton has stepped up and played well. TJ Warren's played well recently. Joe Harris, who they're expecting things from, is starting to pick it up. Seth Curry. But I just don't feel like there's enough around these three guys. First of all, I need more from Simmons, and I don't know if there's enough around these three guys. These three guys, 2.5 guys, to go to an NBA championship. I don't know if there's enough to compete in the East against the Celtics and the Bucks and even the Cavaliers, who have been a surprise this year, despite losing 3 in a row now. Showing you how important it was for the Knicks to get Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks keep playing the way they're playing. Thibodeau's going to be gone, who I've defended right and left. But Leon Rose has got to go as well. I said all last season, and I did a vlog about this very topic, that he needed to go out and make a Donovan Mitchell trade. He needed to show that he could make a trade like that. That he could do it so he could lure free agents in here because they knew they would bring in better bodies to play with. Knicks haven't made a significant trade like this since they brought Carmelo here over 10 years ago. Never signed a significant free agent. I mean, Jalen, don't get me wrong. Brunson's a nice player. Really nice player. He's not LeBron. He's not Chris Paul. He's not some of these guys that refuse to come to the Knicks over the last decade. Amari Stoudemire remains the best free agent the Knicks have ever signed. Things have got to change. They just have to. And if they don't, this topsy-turvy season, this team needs to get more consistent. I said this team has got to finish in the top 6. The team has got to win a playoff series or everybody's going to be gone. I see there's an arrest in the University of Idaho killings. A little off topic. Sorry for my giggle. Let's move on to baseball, shall we? The Yankees. Yankees made a trade this week, trading Lucas Lutage. I'm probably saying his name wrong. Lefty, a decent lefty out of the bullpen for the Yankees the last couple of years. Traded him to the Braves for a couple of prospects. We'll see how that works out for the Yankees. Probably the most significant move of the year for the week, I guess, for the not the year, of course, the week for the Yankees. Carlos Rondon met with the media after signing his 6-year contract for $162 million. I'm still not crazy about this move. I still think that the Yankees have some work to do to be able to compete for a championship. Will they compete in the East with the team they have right now? Certainly they will. But as I said last week, losing out on Andrew Benintendi was a big loss. Now we're happy with the starting rotation, I guess, with Cole and Rondon, who I'm still not confident he's going to be a great fit here. But you still got Nestor. Hopefully we got Severino for an entire year. Hopefully Frankie Montas will pitch like he pitched in Oakland and not like he pitched here for half the season last year. Hopefully Lou Trevino continues to pitch the way he pitched after he came in from Oakland. I look for Clark Schmidt, maybe to challenge for that 5th spot if Frankie Montas can't handle it, but also be a force in the bullpen. Wandy Peralta will be back. He had a really good season, one of the best of his career. Let's hope he can repeat it. We know that relievers are a bit mercurial like that. And then we got the closer situation. So we still need to fortify this. And Jonathan Loaizaga, of course, in the bullpen. I still think they need a couple more arms in the bullpen, and I'm still worried about Clay Holmes at the closer position. Had a great 3 months last year till he got hurt, and he came back and he's never quite the same. Was it the injuries? Was it the league catching up with him? I mean, there's a long history of guys like Clay Holmes not being able to sustain this type of success as a closer anywhere in the league, much less New York. To me, the most important part of this guy in this bullpen is Loizaga, who pitched really well in the second half. He was really bad in the first half, but he really came back and got his act together and pitched like the Jonathan Loizaga we were familiar with. The reason I like him so much, and I really don't want to end up the closer, is because he's the Swiss Army knife of this bullpen. He can pitch anywhere in a high leverage situation. 4th inning, 5th inning, 6th inning, close if you have to. Trevino can close a little bit. Trevino. Catcher I'm happy with. Trevino played well. Hashagawa, Kyle Hashagawa. Oh, I can't say his name. Will be a fine at the backup. First base we're happy with. Second base, Laboratory still could get traded here. Maybe for a third baseman. Maybe they look to move Torres to third base. A lot depends on DJ LeMahieu's health here. If he can get his health under control and he can show the Yankees he can play second base or third base or both, that's going to be a big deal here because the Yankees need to get Josh Donaldson off this team. He can't play anymore. Defense was okay. His bat is slow. Eat the contract, get rid of him. Same with Hicks. Hicks can't be the left fielder here. I know they want Cabrera to be the utility guy this year. Play everywhere, outfield, infield. Played almost every position on the infield, except third base, I think. And every position but shortstop or center field and the outfield. Well, there's only 2 others. But I think you're going to see Peraza or Volpe be the shortstop. Maybe you see both of them. Maybe you see them play first, second, short, and second. I just don't feel they'll throw both of them in the lineup at the same time. But by midseason, you might see the one who doesn't start at shortstop playing second base. Maybe Torres can move to third base. Maybe LeMahieu's healthy enough to play the majority of the games there. It can't be Donaldson. And the outfield right now, you'd probably have Cabrera if the season started today as a starting left fielder. And again, they don't want him. They want him to play nearly every day, but they want him to play in a lot of places. And I love Bader. I love the fact that we're going to get a whole season out of Bader. I hope. Aaron Judge speaks for himself, and you still got Stanton at the catch or the at the DH position. So not a lot of news to report out in Yankee land. See, did I miss anything? Not really. Looks like we're looking good there. Let's move to the Mets. How are we doing for time? We're good. What's going on in the world of the Mets? We know the Mets. We know this after the signing of Correa, and things are still up in the air. The Mets physical, they have not finalized this deal yet. And I think it will get done. I mean, the doctors have a problem, and I guess it was the same thing out in San Francisco with this injury that he suffered in 2014. He was 20 years old, where he'd hurt his fibula, and they had to put in, and he had some ligament damage, but minor. And it hasn't bothered him since. He has not had one stint on the DL because of a leg injury, but they're worried that the back end of this contract, the leg issue is going to become a problem. Well, at the back end of this contract, when he's in his late 30s, anything could become a problem. So why are we worried about this one little thing? Mets are going to get this deal done, I think. And the pressure's on this team, and Buck Showalter probably more so than anybody, to win now. This team is now built to win a World Series now. Not 3 years from now. You got two pitchers that are going to be in their 40s at the top of your rotation with Scherzer and Verlander. I can't believe that ESPN has these old depth charts. That's unbelievable. Let me find something else here. Ridiculous. So sick and tired of, ESPN is so bad in so many ways. They used to be the leader when it came to all this stuff, whether it was their reporting, whether it was Sports Center, whether it was online stuff. Now it's freaking terrible. I'm looking at guys that have signed elsewhere on the Mets roster. Jesus. So anyway, they've got Scherzer, Verlander, Quintana, no youngster himself, 30-some years old. Senga, youngest guy in this rotation. Carlos Carrasco, sorry. And again, I think he's a very important part of this rotation as well. Then you got Peterson and Tyler McGill, who really stepped up big time early last year before he got hurt. We'll see what he can contribute. Probably going to be in the bullpen. Bringing Diaz back on a record-setting contract for a reliever. Adam Ottavino brought back. David Robertson signed as a free agent. I think they could still use a little bit more depth in this bullpen. I like bringing in former All-Star Narvaez at catcher and dumping McCann. Their infield, assuming Carrasco signs, should be second to none. They'll probably look to trade either Escobar or Guillaume because they won't need him. Correa's going to be the shortstop. Now, I might, and I had this conversation with somebody, I think Escobar, let me see if I can click on him. I do think, this won't tell me. I do think he's got some experience at second base. Now, he's a plus defender. He's got a good bat, had a really good second half last year. I'd really think about moving Escobar to second base and McNeil to the outfield. Because they still have a bit of a hole in my mind in the outfield at, let me get back to their depth chart here. Well, you got Canha, who I'm not a big fan of in the outfield. You've obviously got Nemo, who's re-signed and was a big re-signing for them. And, of course, you got Marte. But with Nemo, you don't need Marte to play center field. He can play left field or right field. Probably right now he would slot in a right field. I, again, would move Escobar to second base and McNeil to left field, and off I go. I think they need a DH. I don't see anybody here that I'd be excited about. I know on my Sunday show, a couple of guys spoke up about Volderbach. The guy can't hit lefties, number one. And number two, he didn't hit righties that well last year. Now, maybe Alvarez comes up, the kid who they're grooming to be their catcher of the future. Maybe he catches a little bit behind Navarez, and maybe he DHs outside of that. But still some work to do. This is a good baseball team. A little bit of work. I'd like to see the bullpen a little deeper, I think, in the middle part. I think they're good at the back end with Diaz, assuming he continues what he did last year, and Robertson late in the late innings with the high leverage situations. I think they could use a little bit more depth to that bullpen and maybe some depth to the rotation. right? You got to remember, Scherzer missed some time last year. Verlander's had arm injuries. Quintana, I think he's a pretty steady pitcher, but he's not going deep into games that often. Senga, you really don't know what you're going to get out of. But again, he's going to slot in as a fourth starter, maybe fifth starter. And as I said, you got Peterson and McGill. So you do have some McGill. So you do have some depth there, but not probably what they would like to have. So that's what's next there. College sports around around New York. College football, Syracuse did play, if I could find the game, they did play Minnesota yesterday in the Pinstripe Bowl. If you were excited about that, then good for you. If you weren't, probably even better for you. Syracuse lost the game by 8. They gave Minnesota, a decent game. But they did, the fact remains they end up losing 6 of their last 7. Dino Babers, who I think is a really good coach, did save his job. He had to play a lot of this season without Garrett Strader, his number 1 quarterback, who led them to that 5-0 start. Then got hurt against Clemson, and that started the ball rolling downhill for Syracuse. I do think that this team will probably be improved next year. So they finished 7-6 this year. As I said, lost. I think actually they started 6-0. They lost 6 of their last 7. But again, when you consider they won 1 game last year, I think this is a good result for Syracuse, and I think they should be happy. The rest of the New York area, the only schools that we really have to kind of even talk about is Rutgers, and as long as Rutgers is playing in the Big Ten and not the AAC or someplace, there'll be nothing to talk about. Greg Schiano's second time around here is not going to get it done, and we'll talk more about that as the football season progresses. On the men's side, let's take a quick look at the rankings. Did anybody change here? We had UConn still and we'll count UConn as the New York area. They're number 2 in the country with 21st place votes, by the way. Nobody's moved into the top 20 other than that. Locally, we had votes for St. John's. Did not get any votes this week. So not a good start for the New York teams. Just to kind of look at where they are quickly as we look at is there number? St. Bonaventure. That's one of our New York teams. They're 6-7, not off to a great start after having some pretty good years the last 3 years. They're playing in the A-10. They have not started conference play yet. We'll see if they can start to get it going. In the ACC, Syracuse continues to struggle. 8-5 overall, 1-1 now in the conference. The time for Jim Boeheim is quickly catching up. He's going to be 77 years old soon. I don't want to say the game has passed them by, but, they lost to Colgate again this year at home. They just can't seem to compete. They haven't had a real identity since they moved to the ACC. Again, they weren't looking to go there. This was a football decision, and the football schools all lost in this transaction back in 2012. It's not the same for Syracuse. Recruiting's harder for them. Just a tough situation for them. And it's kind of sad to see. Who else we got? In the Big East, St. John's off to a 1-2 start after getting off to a really good non-conference schedule. They did not have a good start to the conference schedule as they've lost recently to Xavier. Oops, where are they? 84-79. They at home. They lost to Villanova badly, 78-63. These are games that they've got to show some improvement. They've got to show they've closed the gap between themselves and Villanova. Mike Anderson's done a really good job there. He's brought in a lot of good talent through the transfer portal and recruiting, but they've got to win games. This is what we talk about with Texas A&M and football all the time. All these schools that have these great recruiting classes and wonderful transfer success, transfer portal success, but they can't turn into wins. Seton Hall under new coach Holloway, after his great run at St. Peter's, not off to a great start, 0-3 in the conference. It's going to be a long year for him. This team is not ready to compete. They lost a lot of talent the last couple of years. A lot of talent transferred off this team. It's going to be very tough for this team to get going. Who else? The Big Ten. We got Rutgers playing in the Big Ten. Rutgers 1-1 in the conference, 8-4 overall. Pretty good years for them the last few years. This is a tough ask for Rutgers, both in football and in basketball, to compete in the Big Ten. They've done a good job of it in basketball the last couple of years after really struggling for a decade after moving to the Pac or the Big Ten. The Big Ten. It's going to get harder as they have to start making trips to the West Coast when USC and UCLA join this league. But, still one of the better teams playing in the New York area. One of the better teams playing is as I say all the time, Rick Pitino's Iona team. 2-0, off to a 2-0 start in the Metro Conference, Metro Atlantic. A 9-4 overall. Pitino's probably going to be the prohibitive favorite. His team, this Iona team, will be the prohibitive favorite in the MAC. We hope the Siena Saints here locally give them a run. They're 7-5 overall, 1-0 in the conference. We'll keep them in our conversations because they're right here in my backyard. And all of these schools do play. Most of these schools do play in the MAC. Manhattan, by the way, after firing their coach just before the start of the season, off to a 2-0 start in conference play. Good start for them. Riders 2-0 as well. And is there anybody else I want to chat about locally? I guess not so much because Albany State off to a bad start. Going to be a long season for them and their head coach, who's been under a little bit of fire for some mistreatment of players and such. So, listen, good year in New York sports. Yankees, Mets both make the playoffs. Disappointment in the playoffs for both those teams. You've got the Jets, who have improved, still in a playoff hunt. The Giants, who will probably make the playoffs, much improved. Daniel Jones making great strides under a new coach, the new coaching staff there. If you're a Bills fan, a little bit of a disappointment last year to end the season, still in 2022, can turn into much better result in this coming year. So it's funny, with football, we're always crossing over into two seasons. But the Bills this year, I think, can really be happy with the way that their season's gone. The Patriots, not so much. The Knicks still are the Knicks. The Nets, a surprising end to the year here for them with 10 consecutive wins. We'll see what they can do before New Year's hits. And the college teams, not a lot of hope for anybody except maybe Rutgers, maybe St. John's. As we close out 2022, we'll be back after the new year with more New York sports. We'll let you know where the playoff situation stands for the Jets and Giants next week, whether the Bills have wrapped it up, whether my Patriots are still alive. We'll see if the Knicks can get out of these doldrums. And we'll wish a happy new year to all of these teams and a prosperous 2023. We do, again, as we head towards the new year, we hope as we go into 2023, our leader here on this show, I'm just second fiddle, Dan Harris can rejoin us and the other shows that he's a big part of on his network here, Let's Talk Sports. I know all the other hosts and the people that watch these shows are hopeful that Dan will be back sooner than later. And Dan is doing a good job of still keeping things afloat and growing. If you watched some of the posts he puts up in recent weeks, lots of good news for the network itself. So good luck to Let's Talk Sports, and we want to get Dan Harris back. So send Dan a nice Happy New Year and get better soon note. Give him lift those spirits. And Dan, if you're watching, I'll be thinking of you as we turn the calendar to 2023. Keith Engle for Let's Talk New York Sports. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Happy New Year, and stay safe and happy with your families.